Everything has been building up to today, and it was all that we thought it would be, and a whole lot more. Now, of course, there was the new patch and Warbond, but what we saw from the community was not expected. In case you're new here, please hit subscribe and ring the notifications bell to help support the channel as we explore Helldivers' latest update and the pent-up community tensions that have now reached the absolute boiling point. Okay, first off, I wanted to apologize for this morning's video. You see, I was up really late getting that patch notes video ready, and I made a pretty big mistake. You see, in that video, I kept referring to the illuminate Tesla towers as the eyeballs we see guarding squid spawner ship locations, and that was on me. So just to clear up the confusion, the illuminate Tesla towers are in fact Tesla towers, which you also see around spawner ships, but the change does still apply here. You used to have to use explosives to take them out, like a grenade or a shot from the grenade pistol, basically something with enough force. And now that mechanic has been changed over to one with a health bar and armor level 2, so you can now use ballistic damage to take them out as well. Again, sorry about that. So onto the day that was Helldivers, and a little later in this one I'll get to my honest thoughts and impressions of kind of how the day played out, and of course those sweeping changes we got to experience this morning. But first, I wanted to say I honestly can't remember a day when a large majority, hell, I don't know how to accurately describe it, but there was a very loud and vocal uprising aimed squarely at Arrowhead coming from this part of the community. And, I've got to say, this has been building up over the past year through the overabundance of paid war bonds being shoveled at the player base, fixing problems only when they can sell us solutions, the frustrations brought on by this weekend's AMA, Arrowhead's all-in design approach aimed at prioritizing paid content. But also, I wanted to mention this. It was also coming from part of the community who have been providing very valuable feedback for years, and they feel they have largely been ignored. Add in the fact that the final do not cross this line of Mechs now appearing in a paid warbond has now been crossed, sprinkled in with jabs from Johan, Arrowhead's CCO, reminding players that, hey, you can farm for super credits, and the stage was set today for that perfect storm. Coming to us from comicbook.com, they published an article just a few hours ago that reads, "Community backlash over Helldivers 2 is spiraling out of control. The community surrounding Helldivers 2 is facing one of its most volatile moments since launch, with frustration rapidly escalating across multiple fronts. What was once a widely praised live service success story is now dealing with a surge of criticism fueled by a controversial warbond, a poorly received Discord AMA," that's incorrect, it was a Reddit AMA, "and sweeping gameplay changes introduced in patch 6.2.2. Individually, each of these developments has sparked debate, but together they have created a perfect storm that is pushing player sentiment into increasingly negative territory. As discussions intensify across social platforms and community hubs, many players are beginning to question not just specific decisions, but the overall direction of the game itself." The latest Warbond release, 𝗪𝗀𝗪𝗋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋𝒋 inclusion of vehicles as part of its unlockable content. For the first time, a major gameplay feature that players have come to expect as part of standard progression is now tied to a Warbond system, fundamentally shifting expectations around how new content is delivered. Vehicles in Helldivers 2 are not minor additions either, as they often introduce entirely new ways to approach combat encounters and traversal. This has made their placement within a page structure feel especially significant to players who view them as core gameplay elements rather than optional bonuses. As a result, the discussion has moved beyond simple dissatisfaction and into broader concerns about the future of content distribution. This change has struck a nerve within the community, as vehicles are not just cosmetic additions but meaningful gameplay tools that can impact how missions are approached. Many players argue that placing such features behind a Warbond creates a divide between those who engage with the system and those who do not. Raising broader concerns about accessibility and fairness. Some players have pointed out that Helldivers 2 previously built goodwill by ensuring that impactful gameplay features were broadly accessible. That expectation now feels challenged, leading to concerns that the game may be moving toward a model where key tools are no longer universally obtainable. The perception of that shift has proven just as impactful as the change itself. The backlash has been swift and sustained, with players voicing concerns that this decision signals a shift towards more aggressive monetization practices. While warbonds have always been a core part of the game's progression system, this particular implementation has intensified scrutiny over how future content releases may be handled. Discussions across forums and social media have increasingly focused on what this means for long-term player investment. Some fear that if vehicles can be introduced this way, other gameplay-defining elements could follow. Whether or not that becomes reality, the concurrent sentiment reflects a growing lack of confidence in how content decisions are being made. I'm going to jump into this article and press pause for a moment to say that it's not just about vehicles appearing in a paid warbond. Sure, that is a major point of contention, but it's also the growing feeling that while Arrowhead is now prioritizing the development and sales of paid content to players who they characterize as stuck in the mid-game grind, according to Johan in this weekend's AMA, they are also now admittedly not actively working on the things that long-term in-game players have been wanting for years. Meaningful progression, customization, modular mechs, and an active and vibrant galactic war system that rewards players for banding together to get the job done. All of these things have been cast aside as the next new paid warbond is polished up by Arrowhead and offered up for sale. And speaking of that backlash, today was a very loud and collective FU from parts of the Helldivers player base directed back at the studio they feel has forgotten them and worse still, doesn't want to hear from. I've got to say that I haven't again seen this level of motivated frustration come boiling over in this community since the infamous Sony incident. Basically anything and everything that was posted in the official Helldivers 2 Discord channels was met with mass downvotes today. And this is again inside the official Helldivers 2 Discord. This is their ultimate home court advantage. Niklas and Lennart's patch notes video announcement, 8,700 plus downvotes. Hey players, we've got another survey for you. A bunch of downvotes along with a lot of middle finger emojis, but hey, what was the studio expecting dropping a community survey on today of all days? The Helldivers Liberation for Your Leisure new biome trailer hits YouTube. Downvote ratios, every other reaction. We saw a major performance issue hit the game this morning with players' gaming rigs locking up and crashing with Linux and Steam Deck. And those things were really suffering. And even this announcement confirming there were issues and that they were being worked on was met with not only a ton of downvotes, but a massive amount of clown emojis. Even Steam was bringing the heat today, taking the game from mostly positive to mixed in a matter of hours, netting over 800 negative reviews for just today. And to be fair, this level of outcry is also being fueled by the patch itself. Limited mech buff changes that really amount to nothing, sweeping enemy durable damage buffs, common bug enemies getting increased armor values, while nothing was done to ensure our other Helldiver armored pieces like the tank, FRV turrets, and emplacements can remain upright for longer than a few seconds. The point is, players are pissed. They're not being heard. They are vocalizing that they are pissed, and that is spilling out into any action they can take to get the studio to take notice. Let's quickly turn back to this article and continue on. They say, in an effort to address growing concerns, the Arrowhead developer 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, and I'm going to amend this, hosted a Reddit-based AMA, but the outcome has only added fuel to the fire. Despite a high volume of questions from the community, many players came away from the session feeling that their concerns were not adequately addressed. The AMA was seen as an opportunity to reset the conversation and provide clarity, something Helldivers 2 has been short on for a long time. Instead, it appears to have deepened existing frustrations by failing to deliver the level of transparency players were hoping for. A significant portion of the criticism has centered on the perceived lack of clear or direct answers. players have described many responses as vague or non-committal, leaving key questions about design decisions and future plans unresolved. In some cases, answers were interpreted as deflective, which only added to the perception that important concerns were being sidestepped. This has led to a broader sense that communication is not keeping pace with the scale of the issues being raised. When players feel unheard, frustration tends to compound rather than dissipate. The reaction has underscored a growing frustration with how information is being communicated. While live service games often rely on ongoing dialogue between developers and players, I would argue that is key. This particular interaction has highlighted the challenges of maintaining transparency during periods of heightened scrutiny. Some community members have noted that communication missteps can have an outsized impact when tensions are already high. In this case, the AMA has become a focal point for criticism rather than a solution to it. Now, I've already covered the AMA extensively in both of these videos, and I'll link them down in the video description for you, but I've got to say, for a lot of players, what was said in that AMA about progression, the studio's priorities, and the multitude of responses that were built around, we can't do this or we won't do that, along with those vague responses, led to a significant rise in player-studio tensions when the AMA and where it was held was actually meant to lower those frustrations from a boil down to a simmer. The release of patch 6.2.2 has further intensified the situation by introducing significant changes to enemy behavior and overall difficulty. Among the most discussed adjustments is the decision to grant heavy armor to Hive guards within the Terminated faction, an already formidable enemy type. I would say that is probably incorrect. This particular change has quickly become emblematic of the broader concerns surrounding the update. I will say that is correct. Players who were already struggling with certain encounters now find those same situations even more demanding. As a result, the conversation has shifted toward whether these changes were necessary or properly tuned. I disagree on the formidable comment again made by the Hive guards, but AP4 on a common chaff enemy is simply nuts. The change has had a noticeable impact on gameplay, with many players reporting that encounters feel more punishing and less forgiving than before. While some welcome the increased challenge, others argue that the adjustments disrupt the balance that previously made combat feel rewarding and manageable. The addition of heavy armor has forced players to rethink strategies, often requiring more coordination and resource management. Many weapons in Helldivers 2 only have light armor penetration, which means this change significantly alters Hive guard encounters for those weapons. This divide in player experience has made the update particularly polarizing. The broader debate centers on the direction of the game's design philosophy. As difficulty increases, questions arise about whether these changes enhance the experience or risk alienating parts of the player base. Some players believe that a higher skill ceiling is necessary for long-term engagement, while others feel that the game is drifting away from what made it accessible and fun. With tensions already high, patch 6.2.2 has become another focal point in an ongoing discussion about the game's evolving identity. The lack of clear consensus within the community only adds to the sense that the situation remains unresolved. Taken together, these developments have created a moment of uncertainty for Helldivers 2. The game remains popular, I agree with that, and widely played, but the current wave of backlash suggests that maintaining player trust will be crucial in the weeks ahead, with the game once again sitting at mixed on Steam. I'm going to drop the link to this article, and of course all of today's sources can be found down in the video description. But before we move on to my testing thoughts and impressions of EXO experts and of course today's patch, I wanted to ask you, my viewers, if you were surprised by today's downvotes and negative reviews. Hell, I can even throw this one in because I forgot about it, but even the patch notes video Arrowhead posted to their official channel is currently showing 10,000 upvotes to 4,200 downvotes, and we've never seen that kind of ratio on any of their uploads, and it's clearly signaling that there's a level of mistrust and skepticism towards the game and where it's headed. Anyways, now over to the patch and of course the Warbond, along with my brutally honest thoughts about how I thought it all went down and how it all kind of gelled together in terms of gameplay. Well, the mech changes were kind of hit or miss. It's good that you can now take a ton of damage to a single area and still stay upright, so those insta-melt kills have mostly been handled. However, there are times you'll be plodding along and pop, that's it. Some hidden force has folded your mech in half. The arms pretty much stayed the same for health and really only picked up 50% explosive damage resistance. Now, of course, I told you about this in yesterday's video. I tested out the E-Man yesterday and today for incoming ballistic damage, and there was no change. It took the same number of shots yesterday as it does today to pop off an arm. With the 50% explosive damage resistance and up against an explosive damage weapon, the only difference is that today it was taking one more shot to pop off an arm than it did yesterday. I also want to say there's still a lot of inconsistent encounters, just damage out of nowhere, arms popping off from an unseen foe. Overall, you get a better feeling piloting a mech because those critical health pools have been removed, so insta-kills are much less, but once the arms are popped off, your mech becomes an expensive paperweight, and arm popping is still pretty common. We tested out the Oxygenator armor passive, and we're finding that it essentially allowed a player to run as fast as a lighter armor class. For instance, I wore the medium Oxygenator armor versus a player wearing a standard lightweight armor, and we were pretty much running at the same speed. It also meant that the lightweight Oxygenator armor was definitely the fastest, but for armor passives, I'd still prefer something with far more utility, like more nades or stems, explosive damage resistance, or even weapon reload speed. The Gallant SMG is, well, an SMG. I really don't know how best to describe it to you other than it's a knight with the same RPM and ammo in the magazine, but it has armor pen 3 along with 25 less base damage and 5 less durable damage. I mean, you can make it work, but with SMGs, you run into that question of, is it an AR? What does an SMG do better? And if you're going to be using a medium armor pen SMG, why not stick with the Reprimand for the much better base and durable damage? Probably my favorite two pieces to fool around with were the Missle and the Bulletstorm stratagem. I mean, we were using the Missle versus the bots, and being able to lock on and down gunships with a one-tap was actually pretty useful. We're starting to get some more stats over on the Helldivers Wiki, and it looks like the Missle is AP 5 on the projectile hitting the target along with AP 3 for the explosions, although they say to be wary of that information. And, you know, I was using it for Devastator clearing, even sometimes able to get a kill shot on a seriously wounded Hulk. You know, I need more time with it, but so far, that thing kind of surprised me. Same with the Bulletstorm stratagem with its high rate of fire, 300 ammo per consumable, and super easy handling. That thing was definitely pretty interesting. Cooldowns to bring 2 of these down is somewhat just over a minute's time, and having these around for chaff clear is not a bad call. And finally, the Mechs, starting off with the Lumberer. Now, first off, the Flamethrower is really janky. If targets get in really close, your fire will visually pass straight through their bodies, but not inflict any damage. Plus, it seems to take forever with you waggling it back and forth to finally get some fire laid down and onto the ground. The cannon arm feedback is also pretty lacking, and it feels like it should be putting out more damage than it is. Also, the stomp areas are janky AF, and you see that especially on the bug front. You'll have a bug literally standing underneath your foot, hit the stomp button, and it doesn't kill them. Of the 2 mechs, I actually favored the Breakthrough over the Lumberer, but it also suffered from seriously janky mechanics. Using that shield lunge attack often passes through targets with no damage, and the flak cannon, when it connects, can be pretty lethal, but I've seen it hit targets and do little to nothing. There's also times where you'll see a rocket incoming and turn the shield to block it, and it still just hits you somewhere on your mech, inflicting serious damage. Also, just like the Lumberer, I've taken lethal damage from some unseen source through a huge cloud of dust or smoke, and after you lose one or both of your arms, it's game over. So after testing this all out for about 5 hours earlier today and knowing what I know now about the weapons, armor, and mechs, personally, I would have passed on EXO experts. Plus, it's really hard for me to get past the fact that Arrowhead has crossed a line that I fear they can never recover from by including mechs in a paid warbond. Now, I've seen the term monkey paw balancing used when describing today's changes, and honestly, there's a lot in today's patch that could be included in that description. Calling this a buff patch aimed at mechs and then going in and adding in more durable damage to a bunch of enemies outside of the Terminated faction left a lot of people scratching their heads. But there you go. Drop any questions you have and I'll do my best to respond. Please take a moment to hit subscribe and to ring the notifications bell to receive my future upload alerts. If you're on mobile, please swipe the hype to video. And before I go, huge shout outs go out to all those lovely names up on your screens and that list as they've taken the leap to become channel supporters. And without them, making this level of content would not be possible. Until the next one, this is 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏